It's official. The Spotify car thing is dead. And that's really sad because it was honestly a good little device. And we've talked about why and what was going on before. So if you're seeing this message on your car thing, you're probably wondering, what do I do now? Do I just chuck the thing and throw it away? And I'm here to tell you, please, please don't do that. You have options. And that's what we're going to dig in today. Because for instance, you can actually get full functionality working on your Spotify car thing today. And I'm going to show you how, at least until Spotify figures out what we're doing and breaks that too. And that might happen. But even then, there are a few more really good projects you can load to your car thing. Some of which restore most of the old functionality, and some of which, while they don't do that, actually add a lot more functionality. So stick around and I'll show you how to hack your Spotify car thing so you don't have to throw it away. Today we'll cover several projects you can put onto your car thing right now that will get it up and running again and even expand on its capabilities, including DeskThing, GlanceThing, and Nocturne. I'll cover a couple of honorable mentions that aren't ready to use yet, but are worth keeping an eye out for because they look very promising. And of course, we'll talk about how to unbrick this for now, but Spotify is already working on breaking that process too, so just keep that in mind. Regardless of what project you go with, you'll need a few things. You'll need, of course, your Spotify car thing. You'll need two websites that are the primary source for a lot of these tools. The first is thingify.tools, and the second is the Terbium app we'll use to flash this. That's useful for most of these projects, except Nocturne at the moment, although that should change shortly as well. But you'll also need a USB-C cable, and you'll need some kind of desktop or laptop system. That can be PC, Mac, or Linux. Unfortunately, this process will not work with a phone. That's down to needing a desktop class Chromium browser. And for now, Brave is not included in that, but that may change in the future. Let's get started with just the simple unbricking your Spotify car thing to get it working again as intended. To start, you want to take your Spotify car thing and you need to press and hold the first button that's closest to this tab and the fourth button over, not this tiny button above the scroll wheel. While pressing and holding that, plug in your USB cable. You may find it easier to do from the other side as opposed to the back of this car thing. I'm just doing this to keep it on camera. By the way, if you like this stand right here, I'll post a link to it as well. It was created by another fellow YouTuber. I'll even link to his video. You know the process has worked if you've plugged in your Spotify car thing and there is nothing on the screen. Once that happens, we're going to head over to thingify.tools. Here at thingify.tools, you have most of the stuff you need, and you can look through here, but we're looking specifically for the ThingLabs modified car images. We'll click on that. And as they mentioned here, if you're wanting to unbrick, you're going to use the 8.4.4 unbricked version. So we're going to move over to versions and see this 8.4.4 unbricked version. You're going to download that. I've previously downloaded, so I'm just going to pull it up real quick. Now, right now, you have to unzip the folder for the next part to work. That will probably change before this video is even published though. Once you have it downloaded and extracted if you like, head over to Terbium.app. And you should see, please boot the Spotify car thing in a USB mode. We have already done that. Click done. And if you're on Mac or Linux, you'll immediately see this GX-chip pop up. If you're on Windows, you need to do a few more steps to get the drivers working properly. I'm going to link to another video below that will show you that process because I don't have a Windows machine handy. You click connect. We're just going to hit connect again. And this time it'll show us unknown device. And it works that time. We'll restore from local folder, select this 8.44 unbricked, select view files, select, and just let it flash. You're pretty much done at that point. It's really easy, isn't it? That's thanks to developers over at the ThingLabs Discord. You should check out their Discord. They've done a lot of great work on both these projects, that main page where you can get a lot of the downloads, and this flasher as well. The ThingLabs people have done a lot of great work. They deserve a lot of credit for what I'm about to show you right now. This flashing will take about 5 to 10 minutes. We're going to fast forward. Once you hit this complete message, you're going to click on next, and then you will unplug and plug back in your car thing. You'll notice it says ThingLabs now instead of Spotify during boot up. That tells you that you got the flash done correctly. You'll see this phone disconnected screen. The first thing you're going to do is go ahead and click the Go to Phone list and add a new phone. Now, you won't be able to go to the Spotify app and use the old process because Spotify has already broken that. Instead, you're going to want to go to your Bluetooth settings. And if your Spotify is currently in your devices list, you need to make your phone forget that Spotify device. And then search for it again while it's in pairing mode. Pair to it, confirm the pairing, and now everything should kind of work. Like I mentioned, over time, you're going to find that less and less works. Already Spotify has bricked a few of the settings. So voice controls do not work, for instance. It's attempting to do a voice control command right now, and that's going to fail. Along with that, the home screen no longer truly works. So if you try and go all the way back home, nothing's going to happen. At first, playlists may not seem like they're working either. So you will have to actually press and hold on this fourth button to kind of pull back playlists, and then it should start working from there. And you can select your playlists and switch between everything. Your scroll wheel still works, but over time I expect more and more will break. This at least will let you work with the Spotify car thing for now. But when it does break, you're going to want to look for something else. So let's look at the other options. Okay, so next up, we're going to take a look at installing DeskThing on your Spotify car thing. And yes, there's a trend with the names for these projects. DeskThing is not one that you will take in the car. Unfortunately, that's a very difficult prospect. If you're interested in that, look later in the video. We're going to go over one particular option that is difficult to set up, but will work. DeskThing is meant to complement your desktop scenario, or maybe your laptop. Think of it as sort of like a Stream Deck, but in a car thing form factor with helpful widgets and launchers. Let's get started on this. You will of course need your Spotify car thing, a USB-C cord to your desktop or laptop, and you'll need a couple of pages and a bit of software download. So we'll get to that right now. You're going to go to the Thingify.tools site, and you're going to go into ThingLabs, and you'll need to go to Versions, and you'll want to download a slightly newer yet older bundle. This 8.4.4-Unbricked did not work with DeskThing in my testing. You'll want 8.9.2. Download the 8.9.2, then head over to the DeskThing's wiki, and we're going to head to the release pages. Again, I'll have all these links down below for you. And you're going to download the latest version of DeskThing, either for Mac or Windows. Linux is not here yet, they're working on it. Once you have it downloaded, you'll install it and launch it. Welcome to DeskThing. With only a few steps, you'll be up and running with DeskThing. Now the first thing DeskThing wants is for you to flash your device with that ThingLabs download that we just got. So we have to head over to Terbium.app, and we'll have to boot our car thing into USB mode. That's easy to do. You grab your car thing, press and hold the first and fourth button. Just count from the tab on the side for the first to the fourth. You don't want the button that's above the scroll wheel. And while you're pressing and holding those in, plug in your USB-C cord. You may have an easier time doing that from the other end instead of at the car thing. I'm just doing it this way for the camera. You'll know you've succeeded if you plug it in and the screen doesn't turn on. We'll head back over to Terbium, click Done, and it should find immediately your device. Now, if you're on Windows, you'll have a few more steps to do. I've linked a video down below to help you out with that here. Click this GX-tip and click Connect. Hit Connect, and this time it'll say Unknown Device from Anlogic, and this time it will work. Success! Now we're going to restore from local folder, select folder. As of this filming, Terbium doesn't work with zipped files, compressed files. So you will have to extract that 8.9.2 ThingLabs folder, and once you have, that'll be an option inside Terbium. Click it, click Select, click View Files, and select, and let it do its thing. We're not done yet, but let's fast forward a few minutes to when this finishes flashing. Okay, once it's finished, it'll say complete. You'll click Next, and then we get to unplug and plug back in the Spotify Car Thing. You'll see the ThingLabs logo come up. That tells us that the flash worked correctly. And once it finishes booting up to this setup screen, don't worry about that. Head back on over to the DeskThing software and hit Find Car Thing. And look, it found Car Thing. Hit Continue, install DeskThing, hit Install. Now this doesn't completely replace this Car Thing software. It sort of just kind of puts something in front of it. So everything is still there. You're just overlaying a new bit of software that takes precedence. Now we can set up Spotify functionality. This is optional, and you do have to have a Spotify premium account. Now I'm not going to show you this step exactly because it really does depend on your individual system. So what you'll have to do is click on this, follow this guide on how to get it, and then do exactly what it says. Open up Spotify, open up your developer page. It kind of walks you through all the steps. Once you've got your cookie, paste it in, hit check, valid, hit continue. And as you see here, we have a nice welcome screen available, and we can click start in the software, continue, and complete. And you'll see here, it's all loaded up. Now, to begin with, it doesn't look like much, but on one side, we've got Spotify. So if I start up some Spotify music, let's go with some classic Disney, you'll immediately see that pop right up. The other features here are a nice little lock button, just a fast way to lock your computer. Never a bad thing to have as an option. And then a shortcut feature. You have to set this up through the desktop app. To do that, you'll come back to the DeskThing app, click on this little grid right here and plus, and you can add a shortcut. And this lets you create shortcuts directly to your various apps. So for instance, I'm always in Adobe Premiere. That might be a nice one to have. You can choose an image and the command. So the command will depend on your operating system. And I'll leave a link that explains what to do with Windows versus Mac. On Mac, it's pretty easy. You just type in open and then leave the path to your program, which in most cases is /applications/program name. As for image, you'll have to supply your own. I'm going to grab an Adobe Premiere image real quick and download it, make sure it works good, and load that. So I've downloaded a quick Adobe Premiere image. You want to use a PNG that's transparent, just looks best that way. Click open, and we should immediately have an Adobe Premiere logo. Let's do that for a few more real quick that I use. And so I've put 5 shortcuts on here that'll easily let me launch them. Now, you'll notice with DeskThing that instead of using the touchscreen all by itself, you're going to use a combination of touch and scroll wheel. And that's in part because of the design. One of the logos is always going to be really close to that scroll wheel anyways. So you'll touch the area that you want to interact with, like the lock or the Spotify, and then you'll use the scroll wheel to go through each item until you get what you want, and you can hit it and launch. DeskThing is overall a pretty simple system. You can only have up to 8 shortcuts, you have your Spotify, and you've got the lock, and that's about it. But if that's kind of what you want in a desktop companion, simplicity and ease, and you've only got a few things you like to launch regularly, this is a good one to look at. If, however, you're more interested in something far more expansive and capable, we should check out DeskThing. DeskThing sort of resembles DeskThing in that it turns your car thing into a companion for your desktop or laptop, but it goes a different direction. While DeskThing is more of a Stream Deck, shortcut, app launcher type system, this is more of an extensive capability system, giving you the options to check weather, check music, look at your CPU usage, and so on. Let's get started. Just like the other projects we looked at so far, you'll need just a few things. You'll need your car thing, of course, a USB-C cord, your desktop or laptop with access to a mobile class browser, specifically Chromium, although Brave still isn't working as of my last checking. To get started, we'll head to the DeskThing.app website. I'm sending you here because while the Thingify Tools site does have a link to the latest version of DeskThing's server usually, at the moment it's out of date. So I'm sending you to this main source just in case that happens again in the future, and you'll always get the latest version. So at the DeskThing site, you're going to look for the version of operating system that your desktop or laptop is. I'm on a Mac Studio, so I need the ARM version of the Mac server software. Download that, and while that downloads, we're going to get the car thing set up. Much like the other projects we've done so far, you'll start by unplugging your car thing and pressing and holding the first and fourth button up top. Just count from this little tab on the side for your first and head to the fourth. You don't want this smaller button above the scroll wheel. So press and hold, and then plug in your USB-C cord. It may be easy to do this on the desktop side of things, but I'm doing it this way just for camera's sake. You know you've done this correctly if you don't see anything on the screen after you've plugged in. Okay, now that you've done that, you're going to head over to the thingify.tools, and you're going to head to the main page and go to ThingLabs, Versions, and go for older versions. We don't want this 8.4.4 unbricked. I've tested this and it doesn't work for these projects. It's just for unbricking Spotify. So grab 8.9.2, or if they come up with anything newer, you can go ahead and grab that in theory and download that version to your system. The next thing we'll do is go ahead to the Terbium site. With your car thing plugged in into that USB mode we just set, you'll start by hitting Next, Done, and then Connect, and you should see this GX-chip pop up. Again, if you're on Windows, you'll need to take a few more steps. I've linked a video below that will help you out with that. Click Connect. We'll just hit Connect again, and it will show up as unknown device from Anlogic, and when I click Connect, it usually works that time. Actually, it always works that time. Now here's some good news. Terbium's seen some updates since I started filming this video. I've told you to extract folders and previous versions of this little setup process. You no longer have to do that. It can use a zipped archive. But I'm going to continue to use my extracted folder I already have. You can either choose Restore Local Archive if you're still extracted, or Restore Local Folder. Either way works. Select folder, and then find that download that you just took of the 8.9.2-ThingLabs. Select, click Select again, and let that flash for a few minutes. While that flashes, we can get the DeskThing server setup that we've already been downloading. This is going to take a few extra steps. You're going to find the DeskThing setup in your downloads. I've got a couple of them because I've downloaded this a few times just for testing, and get that installed on your system. Now what you do next kind of depends on your OS. You will probably run into some issues because this is coming from a relatively unknown source at this point. So you'll start out by installing, and in the case of Mac, if you click on the app right now, it's going to give you a weird error message. Oh, this is damaged. This is just Mac being safe because they're unsure about this app. And in fact, they're so unsure that you can't go through the usual head to settings, privacy, and allow the app process. It won't show up there. So instead, we're going to have to head to Terminal. Hit Cancel and don't move to Trash. So right click on the DeskThing.app and say New Terminal at Folder. And now this is just one too many folders in, so we're going to type CD period, and that'll take us up one folder. The other thing you do is type CD space / applications with a capital A. I'll put that text in the description below. And then you'll throw in this command as well, which I will put in the description below, and hit Enter. Type in your personal password, and this will allow DeskThing to launch. So now if we head back to DeskThing and double click, this time it should work. Now let's go check on Terbium. We're still flashing, so we're gonna let that process finish real quick. Okay, now that that's finished flashing, you can click the home button. You're back to your main screen, but we're done. Next, you'll come to your car thing, unplug it, plug it back in, and you'll notice that it says ThingLabs. That means it's successfully flashed correctly. That's a good sign. Let this fully boot up until we get to the car thing setup page. That's to be expected. Okay, here we are at the car thing setup page. So now we can open that DeskThing software that we just installed on your device. This is the dashboard page. We're going to come over to Clients, and we're going to enable auto config. Kind of makes things a little bit easier, but we'll refresh the ADB. Here's the device, and we'll hit Configure. And here we are, fully configured. Now if you look closely on here, there is some stuff on here. Sync with server is the thing you want to press, and that'll kind of get everything going. To start though, DeskThing doesn't have much going on for it. It's kind of a really basic screen. We need to install some apps. So we're going to head back to the DeskThing server program and hit Downloads. And here we'll find a bunch of different apps that you may or may not want to install. I have a couple recommendations. If you have Spotify Premium, go ahead and install the Spotify app. and then hit Initialize App. Might as well install the System app. And I like Weather Waves. This is one designed by another user, actually another YouTuber. I'll link that down below to his video. He's also the one who designed this fancy stand. Really good stuff altogether. And we'll click Initialize App on there. And if you head over to Notifications, by now you'll see that there's a request. We need to set up Spotify while we're at it. So we'll expand that, and it's going to ask for a Spotify client ID, client secret, and it's providing a redirect URL. We need to set up our own Spotify API in the developer portal. Again, you need Spotify Premium for this part to work. Thankfully, DeskThing has kindly provided the link you need. Just click Spotify Developer Dashboard right here, and you'll see the Spotify e-ink. Check out my other video where I showed you how to design your own little Spotify e-ink screen as well for more on that. But for now, we're going to click Create App. Give this a name. We're going to call it DeskThing. You can name it anything you want. This is for my DeskThing is my description. You can give any description you want. This redirect URL is important. You need to come back to this Spotify local thing, copy it, and paste in here, and then click Web API. That's all you need is the Web API for this one, and save. Oh, don't forget the I understand. Save. Now we're going to get the other information we need. So we'll come up to this settings, and we're going to get this client ID, which for you looks blurred on purpose. Copy it, paste it into the client ID spot in the DeskThing software, come back to the developer portal and click View Client Secret to reveal that. In your case, it looks like blur. Copy it, head back to DeskThing and paste it in. And then find this little check mark down here that'll become a submit. Not the most obvious thing. And click submit. You'll get this nice thing with your username blurred up here. And click agree. Success, and you can close that window. There we go. That's now set up. Now we can come back to clients and we can tell it to reconfigure and push everything through. And we're going to want to come over to Settings, Music, Enable and Refresh Interval, and make sure this says Spotify app and not None or Disabled, unless you're using MediaWin on a Windows device. MediaWin does not work for macOS, sadly. That is what allows it to listen for any other music source going on. So if you use something like YouTube Music and so forth, that makes it a little bit more possible. We should see some new options pop up here. And we can click things like Weather Waves, Spotify, and so on. I'm not playing any music at the moment, but that's basically what it looks like. So I could start up some music, and eventually it would come through, and everything will work beautifully. The one thing I should note is you see Weather Wave has a spinning circle right now and isn't showing album art. At the moment, DeskThing isn't working on macOS with showing album art through Spotify. The developers are aware and are working on a fix. Hopefully that'll be taken care of soon. It normally looks a lot better than this, but this gives you an idea of what DeskThing is capable of. There are more apps coming for this all the time as well. So what this is ultimately is kind of a nice extension to your desktop. It does take a little bit of work, but pretty good overall. But what if you do want to take your Spotify car thing and use it as it was originally intended in your car? Well, for that, we're going to take a look at Nocturne. If what you really want is to get the Spotify car thing working in your car again, this is Nocturne. And if you can get past some of its problems, it might be the project for you. But it does have some big problems we should talk about. First, let's look at it though. It's honestly a beautiful little interface. They've done a good job of giving you all the controls you want in a nice, convenient area. Now, in a second, you're going to notice that all my artwork has disappeared. And that's one of the problems that we'll get into for a moment. But at the ready, you've got Now Playing, Recents, and more. And you can get to what you want. And it works and looks nice. Except that problem we were just talking about. The graphical interface is very slow when it comes to loading images and so forth. This is just, well, I have no other words than kind of bad. Give it long enough and eventually the artwork will load, but as I scroll to the side, I'll lose that again. And while it's loading those images, you can't select the album in question that you want to hit because the images are also the touchscreen button. And that's just, well, not great. This isn't Nocturne's fault entirely. They just haven't figured out hardware acceleration because, well, frankly, that's a really difficult aspect to this. But it is something you have to keep in mind. Can you deal with a slow interface? And there's probably some other stuff you should know about too, like this mess I'm kind of hiding back here. You can't just run the car thing. You also need an attached Raspberry Pi and wires. And now, to be fair, this is not the ideal setup. You could run off much shorter cords and you could use a Raspberry Pi 02W. I have one of those, but I'm not using it because I don't have the right cable to connect them up together. For that, you'd need USB-C to micro USB, and that's just not a super common cable I'd have laying around. So I use this to kind of get things up and running. But regardless, even with a short USB-C to micro USB cable, you'd have an extra little thing hanging off the car thing. It's not the most ideal situation. And to be frank, if you're willing to put up with that, you could actually do that with DeskThing too. You could run the server off a Raspberry Pi and then connect it up to your Spotify car thing. Which interface you prefer is kind of up to you. I lean more towards DeskThing because right now you can extend its capabilities and it works fast. However, for a true Spotify car thing like interface, Nocturne is much closer. The problem just being how long it takes to load artwork. Eventually you get there, and if you don't play too many songs across too many albums, it's more than workable. But if you do, it's not the greatest experience. That might get fixed someday. You'll notice I'm not showing you the setup for this like I have the other projects. It's involved. Very involved. You need to flash the car thing and you need to set up the Raspberry Pi. It took me 3 attempts to get it right following the official Nocturne video, which is already outdated. And I could make you a video, but it probably would be outdated pretty quickly too. However, it did just get easier. Until now, you've had to use Superbird tools to set up the car thing because the image is so large and it didn't work very well. That's one of the reasons why it failed on me once. It just couldn't get through the right process. Now Terbium is updated to be able to handle files large enough to take care of that part of the process, and it should make it easier. But you'll still need to get into Terminal and work with your Raspberry Pi to get scripts loaded to it. And it's not super difficult, but it's tedious, and it's just not my highest recommendation. But if what you really want is to get the Spotify car thing back in your car and the Unbrick isn't working anymore, this might be one of the most viable options right now. Let me know in the comments below if you do want me to put together a video of how to set this up, and I'll do it. Finally, I want to go over a couple of honorable mentions for projects that aren't ready yet and you can't start using today, but we should still keep an eye on because they have good progress and good promise. The first one is Hydrogen OS. Hydrogen OS promises to be kind of a reskin of the Spotify car thing, getting everything working again and maybe even working with multiple music services. Right now, it's on hold. And the reason is the developer has been working on Terbium all this time. So that's why I think it's worth keeping an eye on. They've done great work on Terbium, which gives me great hope that they'll do great work on Hydrogen OS, but I don't know when it will happen, so right now it's not a viable option. The other one is MacroDeck. MacroDeck, if you're unfamiliar, is a Stream Deck-like software that you can install on Raspberry Pi and other devices and build your own Stream Deck. The developer has a car thing, and you should check them out because they're hoping to get donations to help pay that back. They're based in Germany. Getting them a car thing was expensive, but they did enough work to get the car thing working as a macro deck on the current version of the server firmware. However, they're getting ready to do a massive overhaul of that server software, so they put the car thing project on hold until they could finish the server software, and then they'll update the car thing software to work with it. They gave us some early previews over in the Thing Labs Discord, and it looks great. So if you're looking for something more along the lines of Stream Deck and you don't think GlanceThing is powerful enough, keep an eye out for when MacroDeck does eventually release a Car Thing update. And as far as all these developers go, a lot of this work has been done by the Thing Labs people, and they could use your help. I'll leave a link down below to the Thing Labs Discord. They're doing tons of work on extending the capabilities of the Car Thing in this age where Spotify abandoned it. It's through Thing Labs that people came together and developed DeskThing. I'll leave a link down below to them as well, and Terbium, and more. And you could always give them some donations to help them keep up that good work. And while you're at it, you should subscribe to this channel. We've got a lot more great content coming. I'll be at CES soon, and I'm planning to do some live streams. So if you subscribe, you'll see really cool stuff happening in real time. That's it for now, but let me know if you have any questions about the Car Thing below, or if I should do some more follow-up videos. And until next time, bye!